Hello, I'm Bob the Bookerer and welcome to my channel. And today I just wanted to continue on with reviewing some of the individual books from the International Booker Prize shortlist for 2025. I don't know why, for some reason I'm finding that title really difficult today, but there we go. And this book, A Leopard-Skin Hat by Serre and translated by Mark Hutchinson, is a really interesting one, I think, for several reasons. Sorry, there was a car alarm going off and I didn't know quite how long it would be. Anyway, so this book is a really beautiful and spare book, I think, in many ways. I'm not going to go into spoilers, I don't think, as I go. I'll flag if I do. But I think this book is so interesting in so many ways because of just how much it achieves in quite a small number of pages, and particularly the way that it has this very subtle, quiet, haunting nature. Where everything is quite mysterious. Everything is kept mostly at arm's length. And a big part of why it's at arm's length is that we're being told the story through someone else. This person is just called the narrator. We're not given any other name, I don't believe, for him. But he is this close friend of a woman who we are looking at, a woman called Fanny, who is going through some sort of huge and life-changing mental health and sort of other parts of her health challenges. It's a really tricky book in many ways because we're seeing something really quite painful happening. We're watching as the narrator is this distant figure who has a really intense and close bond with this woman, but is never fully able to reach across the void and support her in the way that he wants to. And in some ways that the format of the book and the way this story is told really helps fit form and function in this. That the story is just about this dislocation almost of a friendship, of how it's really difficult to have this really intense relationship and watch somebody who you love so deeply struggle so much with something that you cannot change or control. And in many ways, the narrator is also allowed to do that through the way this book is told. This book is told as a story of the narrator going back over a friendship that's happened, trying to think about what he maybe could have done differently. And so right from the beginning, this book is keeping this woman, Fanny, at a distance. We are never fully able to get there because the narrator is not even fully saying I or what have you. The narrator is referred to constantly as the narrator, and it becomes this almost ongoing joke throughout the book where sometimes it's poked fun at that all he does is tell stories, but in some ways that's all that he can do with a relationship like this. And that's what I found particularly captivating about this book. There's a smidge over 100 pages, and it has this lingering quality where sometimes we change, we move from one chapter to the next, but actually the action picks up entirely from where it just was. And it almost feels like it didn't need a chapter break, but the chapter break is served almost as this pause. I don't know if it's also just the way it was bound as a book, but there were often a couple of pages in between each chapter. And it felt quite profound to have the book forcing you to just have this small gap between something big and profound and the next part, whilst actually nothing really has changed in between. There is this constant keeping you at bay. The story is trying to find the joys and the happiness of this woman's life, and these little in-jokes they had, and the private moments that nobody else saw, and the ways that they almost have a romantic relationship, but it's entirely platonic, and all of these beautiful, profound moments. But then there is an untouchability, there's an unknowability. And I thought, I was thinking about this as I was reading the book, that it does feel like when you've lost somebody and you don't always, you can remember all the positive memories, you might forget some of the worst memories, you focus maybe more on the positive, but that's all they then become. It's difficult to really summon them back because all you really have left of them are these stories, and you have these wonderful memories and you have these other things, but there's an untouchability. They're still over there somewhere. There's you cannot quite reach them. But instead of this book just feeling sad about this, there's a real beauty in a sense of almost celebrating this person's life. There's a way that this book is a last hurrah of, I refuse to to let this woman, his friend Fanny, just become a set of stories. I refuse to let her just become a diagnosis or a set of problems. I want to remember her in this completeness of who she was as a person. I want to remember her in all of these other ways. And there's something about the way this book, I think, just keeps you at that arm's length, that allows you almost to come into the story. It sort of sounds like it shouldn't make sense. It feels quite paradoxical, but the story is so good at keeping you away that in some ways you lean closer. And I think that's what's quite special here about this book, is it is just this very quiet, pensive book that's very short and just lets you in on these little moments, these very short chapters about who this woman was who you've never met. And you want to find out more about her. You want to understand the things that made her laugh, why that in-joke that they had was so silly or so funny, how that even came about, and why that would still be important to them 20, 30 years later. Why this is such an important thing for the narrator to write, and almost why he wants himself removed in this, why he is just the narrator, why he's only able to tell the story of somebody. There's something interesting actually from the Booker Prize's website, that this was written by the author Anne Serre after her own sister passed away, after sort of died by suicide. And the book feels like a love letter to somebody who's gone, told through the stories of how we might want to remember them best. But it also is not fully allowing us to just only remember the good times. It's important in this book that we see a full, complete person who is going through dark times, who is, there's a trickiness there as well. And maybe also they are at an arm's reach. How much can we ever fully understand another person and their struggles and their joys and their challenges and everything that goes into being a human? And I think that's what's so special about this book, is almost an acknowledgement from the narrator that all we can do is narrate. We can only say our perspectives. We can only say the moments that we were there for, the moments that we saw or we heard about. We don't have an access into the head of another person. And in many ways, this character of Fanny is just over here. We can see her, we understand parts about her. We don't know the demons that she's battling, but we can see her battling. And that is as much as we can ever really know a person. And I think that's what really feels quite special about this book, and is so poignant and touching, is that we just have to watch, we just have to listen to a story narrated. Yeah, and it feels really quite special just to see the intensity of that friendship here. I wonder in some ways as well, something here about, it's interesting that Anne Serre has taken a real life moment for her and has written it in this way, where it's a friendship, a platonic friendship of a man and a woman instead of siblings. And I wonder in some ways if that's an easier prospect, because with a sibling you maybe do know aspects of them that they don't realize they know. You've got this shared history, whereas there's an unknowability to some degree about a friend, of you've met them at a certain period and the rest of your life with them can only begin from that point. You might hear stories from before times and before you knew them, but that's all you kind of have. And I think there's something really quite special in this book. So yeah, a book that really took me by surprise. I think it's doing a lot more under the hood than it first appears to be doing. And I just really enjoyed watching how the book is able to just keep you just away and keep something just unknowable as it goes. I've been Bob, talking about this book. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've really enjoyed the book. Take care and speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.